Call this meeting to order. We rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's council meeting. As a reminder, if you could please silence any electronic devices that you may have. Has everybody's received a copy of the minutes prior to tonight's meeting? Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. Is there any additions or corrections that need to be made to the minutes from March 6th of 2018?
Mr. President, there are no amendments, additions, or corrections that move to be accepted as presented.
I'd second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes from March 6th meeting. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. I'll send it down for your signature. Is there any mail that anybody that would like to share with the rest of the council that they received? If not, attorney? Okay. Mr. Strong and the rest of the Finance Committee has met to put together a document. I think that, Dale, did you want a few minutes to go over that?
Well, we're supposed to present it tonight.
Okay.
Have you read it?
I've read it.
Okay. Does it suit you?
It suits me. You did a good job.
Okay. Well, if it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and, everyone has a copy of the Budget and Finance Committee's report on our 2017 budget year performance. And for the benefit of those listening at home as well as those in the room with us tonight, I'll read through this, and if there's any questions or comments afterwards, me or Mike or Shirley will be glad to try to answer your questions. This is something we've done for quite a number of years. Take a look back at the previous year, measure our successes and failures so we know what to try to do this year and going forward. So I'll begin. This annual review of financial records for budget year 2017 of the county's general fund and various departments reveals a significant improvement in the year-end balance of the general fund and notable improvements in others. The general fund, for the first time since 2010, the general fund year-end balance for 2017 increased rather than decreased to $2,194,910 compared to $501,252 for the year-end 2016. This reversal of fortune can be explained in two parts. First, the continued accumulation of dividends from cost-saving measures taken by the council and commissioners in the previous 6 years is holding operating expenses within revenue streams. New to 2017 was the commissioners contracting with a new medical insurance carrier that reduced the total cost of employee health insurance to the county by $602,556 over the previous year. And Commissioner King is in the audience here tonight. My hat is off to you commissioners for that contribution. That was a good thing there. Secondly, the reversal of a State Board of Accounts rule to hold local income tax receipts in a separate fund has allowed the county auditor to receipt $1,627,026 as miscellaneous revenue to the general fund. These measures together improve the year-end balance to the point of eliminating the cash flow problem in the general fund that has plagued us since 2013. The county auditor anticipates no borrowing of funds this year. While certain miscellaneous revenues like license excise taxes were up 5 3/4%, property tax collections were volatile. Property tax collections for the county levy came in at 85.31% compared to 87.84% in the previous year, resulting in $755,159 of uncollected property taxes in 2017 compared to $601,338 in 2016. Although these uncertainties of funding will always confound budget planners, we are encouraged by the 2017 results and hope to continue this trend of better fiscal health through continued cost reduction and containment wherever feasible. The challenges going forward will be difficult, but we believe it reasonable to set goals to replenish the rainy day fund and reduce dependence on the edit tax funds to subsidize the general fund. The restoration of the rainy day fund and reducing our dependency on edit funds has always been a long-term goal of the council. The Emergency First Aid Department, the partnership with the City of Connersville to provide medical transport services for the county has not proven to be the cost-saving vehicle that was anticipated. Operating expenses versus collections are out of balance and caused the largest single additional appropriation of $100,000 in 2017. The committee recommends closer cooperation with city leaders to reduce expenses in this department. The Highway Department, since the increase in gasoline taxes last year, indications from first quarter distributions to the county cause us to expect a 41% increase in local highway funding this year. As a result, we expect to see an increase in road maintenance and repair and plan to budget appropriately. Health and cemetery departments are managing to function within their current funding limitations, but these budgets are very, very tight. 911 Central Dispatch. The 911 Central Dispatch Department, cited last year for deficit spending, has reduced its deficit by 46% in 2017. The changes in this department are going to be needed soon. Proposed plans by the department director should further close the budget gap in that department this year. The committee recognizes with great appreciation the efforts and cooperation of the various elected officials, department heads, and employees who willingly contribute to our efforts to continue a good and uninterrupted service to our community. This report is not all-inclusive of detail, but offered as a general overview of the general fiscal health of the county government. Respectfully submitted by the Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Winna, Mrs. Wise, and myself. The last 2 pages, you see these bar graphs that the county auditor was kind enough to create for me. She's really good at that Excel program, which I'm no good at. But as the year-end balance is graphed out there, you can see what a jump that it made. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to have one of these from print, I've got some extras here. And the second graph shows our history of deflict, and this year we had to add surplus to that description because our graph shows that we went from how we went from a negative balance to a positive balance. And you know, this has been, I'll say this has been tough to get to where we have. We've had to make some hard decisions on this council. Of course, we've had help and assistance from the commissioners. Everyone involved has contributed to this. Our task now is to try to improve on what we've accomplished. This is not going to be easy to maintain. We're going to be under pressure from all directions for increased funding in various places. But I'm sure you're up to the task. So with that, I'll defer to my committee members, and if you have anything to add to or subtract from what I say.
No, I just want to say I appreciate the amount of work and effort that Councilman Strong puts into these reports. He does a great job on this, puts a lot of time in gathering these numbers and figures, and we appreciate that. I also want to thank not only our current commissioners and current council members for the work that they put in trying to get this where we are, but also our past commissioners and past council members that have helped get us there, because with everybody's help that we did this. Went back to when I first came on the council, one of the first things we tried to do was start making better use of the edit funds and how we could relieve pressure on the general fund. And like Councilman Strong said in his report, you know, the long-term goal was always to wean us off of that edit tax so that we could focus more on just the general fund and free that up for other purposes. So we're heading in the right direction. We're not where we want to be yet, 100%, but we're a whole lot closer than we were 6-7 years ago. And appreciate everybody's efforts on that. Shirley, did you want to add anything?
I'll just say, it's been, and not just the councils either, the individual county employees in this
Right.
courthouse have looked to find ways to get by with less, and very creatively, and used, and many times, grant funding sometimes. But yes, it's just really truly been a united effort.
Thank you. Thank you for the report from Councilman Strong.
Fine. This is the first time I've been able to report a balanced budget.
And then you're leaving us.
I mean, that's the exciting stuff right there.
Well, that's been my number one goal, to get the county general fund to a balanced position. And it's taken at least 6 years of work to do it. I don't pretend to claim all the credit for that. I've played a part in it. Everyone else here has played a part in it. It's a team effort. But I sure hope we can keep it that way.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to our Commissioner's representative. Madam President.
Well, after he's given all that good report on the finances, I'm going to ask for extra money. We need additional appropriations. Thanks to these boys over here, we need $50,000 from the general fund to help add on an additional pauper attorney, to contract a new pauper attorney contract to meet state requirements. We just don't have enough pauper attorneys to handle the workload at the courthouse. And I also need $50,000 to replenish our insurance deductible budget account after claims are paid, because we had a large claim which used up our $50,000 deductible, and that's all we had budgeted in that fund. So we need to replace that in case we have other claims come in. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Did you not hear what I just said?
I heard every word you said, and I thank you. I did my part on that, so I worked hard to see
I had
if we
to
could
throw
save
that
a bunch
out.
of money. That's okay. But thank you. And I worked hard to keep us from having to pay too much on those deductibles.
You might want to just hang tight there for a second, because I don't think Richard's going to make it on the trucks. But on the pauper attorney, our auditor, Jane Downard, sent us an email back on the 19th of March with the gentleman from the state basically explaining how that all works and what we stand in jeopardy of losing. And she forwarded another email to us today. She gave me a hard copy, but you may not have read the email yet about that, so this doesn't really sound like this is something we can negotiate or debate.
No, we need the extra $50,000 for an additional attorney, because if we don't have that, they will quit reimbursing us
Right.
for about half of the cost. So part of the money we pay for the attorneys we get back from the state of Indiana, and we got a pretty good
Judge Friedrich.
chunk of change last year.
So-
I think it was over $100,000 or so.
Madam President.
Judge?
I think it's actually just, sorry to say, just a little worse than that. That 50,000 was for one person even. It was the preliminary number. At the time I came, what I called the no surprises tour, when I came around last month and told people this was coming. They hadn't given us the actual numbers yet. It's actually at least a fraction of another one as well, since the new numbers came in. I don't know which letter you're looking at, Mr. Winter, Councilman Winter. But I brought some presentation to flush that out a little bit if you want me at some point.
Did you want to address the trucks for the highway department at all? Richard called me earlier with the flooding going on that they're dealing with. He didn't know if he'd be able to make it or not tonight. He was going to try, but he
He
told me
wasn't here
briefly.
this morning to present anything to us because
Okay.
he was unable to do anything except put barricades up and try to keep people from running down the river. I think they went that way anyway, from what I understood
Yeah.
in some of the talk here ahead of time. But if you want to pass a floodlight gate, why, you take your chances with floating away, I guess. I understand somebody went through the Waterloo Gate. They hadn't, somebody told me that they had not had any problems for years until they put that gate back up. And they put the gate up and somebody decided he'd go around it. And he went down the river. I don't know why people can't understand that we have the fastest flowing river in the state of Indiana. It goes through Fayette County.
Thank you. Mr. Parker,
Yes.
did you want to?
Take a minute. I'd like to invite each of you to attend a technology event that's going to take place at the Miller Center a week from tonight. It starts at 6 o'clock Tuesday evening, the 10th of April. There's no charge. We're inviting business owners, elected officials, civic leaders, and if you're a technology aficionado or a technology buff, you're invited as well. There'll be a meal provided, thanks to one of our sponsors. And we'd love for each of you to come. I've checked with attorneys in the past. You can all come to this and not be in any danger of violating any laws, provided you don't discuss any pending matters that you'll be voting on. So please come to this. This guy, Dr. Roberto Gallardo from Purdue University is the speaker. Commissioner King has seen him and heard him, and so have I a couple times. This is being facilitated by the Eastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, along with Economic Development, the Chamber, and Purdue University. The information that he'll impart is very thought-provoking and certainly of interest to anyone that has dealings in our county from a business standpoint, or going forward with trying to improve our lot in life from a economic development standpoint. So please, if you would, mark that on your calendars. Judges, we'd love for you to come as well to take part. Certainly the newspaper, Colin and Jane, we'd love for you to come as well. That was one thing. And then the other thing, and I'll get off of here unless you have questions for me, is I want to thank and acknowledge and compliment you for the report that Dale just gave. That is tremendous. And I think the public will be astounded when they hear about this. I think that means so much in so many different areas to our community to be positive financially. And just wanted to pay you my compliments and my admiration for the good job that you're doing. And I don't have anything else beyond that unless you have any questions for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a couple items under new business. I'm going to skip past them in hopes that maybe Richard is able to make it here. Carl Scheid is not here, I believe, so we'll move on. He may come in a little bit later. I'm going to move to the pauper attorney contracts. Judge Freed, you had something to share with us?
Add to President's speech from the commissioners. When I first brought this up at the commissioners, it was the very day I found out, and Ralph Eldridge, who is the chairman of our local public defender board, would ordinarily handle this. I don't want anyone to think I'm overstepping my bounds here. He was unavoidably detained on business in Chicago and wouldn't be back in time today, so this is just not the kind of thing that could wait, so that's why I'm here doing this presentation. So we've got a letter from Derek Mason of March 16th. It was right after I spoke to the commissioners last about this issue. Is that the letter that you have, the email?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you already know that. I won't trouble you with that. So I've analyzed some of that, and Judge Brandstetter and I met with Mr. Eldridge, again, chairman of our public defenders board, and we did the math on it. So the total overage is a .866, reference a .66 maximum on the state's rating system. So that's a total overage, basically 1 1/3 over. So 50,000 would be one attorney's contract. And so and he even mentions in there, so he clearly had already done this math himself prior to sending this email, though he doesn't lay it out for you. You see there in the last sentence, actually, I believe. Honestly, given the increased appointments, I'm not sure even a single new hire will address the caseload issue. Well, indeed, if you do the math, it won't. It comes up short. So really, 2 would be best, but at the very least, we'll have to have a contract and a half to have any slack in the system at all to keep any minor surge from putting us into non-compliance again. We have done a half contract before as we've incrementally gotten worse. There was a time that there was a half contract let. I think, did you have a half contract?
It was right, I think it was Jason's right before I came up.
Okay. Mr. Jason Ray, now the chief deputy prosecutor in Union County, was once a public defender here, and he held a half contract at one time to try to not, to spend as little as possible, obviously. So really it would be another half, so it would be another $25,000 for a half of a $50,000 contract. And I will remind the board as well, has let contracts that include various overages, and the contracts only provide for F3s and below on appointments. The F1s, 2s, murders are hourly appointments that are off contract, and even on contract appointments have, I don't know what you want to call them, bonus payments, but they're just extra payments above the regular contract price for TPR hearings, which is termination of parental rights, which Judge Brandstetter deals with by the scores, and juvenile hearings of the same type, and then of course trials, jury trials, probation, revocation hearings, $600 and $1,000 respectively, in addition to the regular contract payment. So it would be my recommendation, and Judge Brandstetter and I have spoken with Ralph about this previously, that be taken into consideration as well. So 50 for a whole contract, plus a half contract, plus whatever you can afford because inevitably this new person and the other half-contract person will have termination of parental rights hearings, probation revocation hearings, jury trial, et cetera, which will account for money beyond the $75,000 I'm referencing in the base contract. So, I mean, we could proceed without money beyond that, but inevitably, I arrive in the fourth quarter short, so that may be just the way it has to be. I understand the situation. But that's where we're at. And the consequence, I think, has already been described to you in the, maybe behind the scenes, or just reading between the lines of the various emails that came in from Mr. Mason.
The only thing that we can consider at this time is the 50,000. We can't consider the half because it's not been advertised yet, so
We didn't know.
we'd
Sorry
have to do
about
that. We'd have to do that next month or in a special meeting if it's required, if you can wait till next month.
That would surely, I don't know, but I would think, my estimation is that that would show good faith to Mr. Mason, and that he would allow that to proceed another 30 days. Besides that, I will tell you, although this is definitely not your problem, finding people to take them is no easy thing. No one's standing in line with their hand in the air. I've already been on the begging tour, trying to get people to take this. It's money, but it's, as evidenced by the lack of enthusiasm when these are announced around, this is not an easy sell. Plus, as you may well know, I think I mentioned earlier, two of the existing contractors, one sitting to my left, will be resigning from the contract, and maybe a second one. So if we're able to fund this at 1.5 or 1.5, I presume, and then have two leave me, that means I have to fill 3.5 positions, what the board does, immediately. Because we can't leave them empty very long at all for obvious reasons. The math that is before you on the page precludes us leaving any of those spots open for very long. So between the board and Judge Brandstetter and I, we'll just simply have to make that happen. But I assure you, if we end up if that's the way it works out, and we end up being required to find 3 and another one to take a half contract in the next 30, 45 days, that's extremely difficult to do. But again, I understand that's not your problem. Just the money is your problem. I understand. So yeah, that'd be fine. And if we come back for the other, if you intend to put it up for a half, but we would certainly need that. That would give us very little slack. 1.5 would give us very little slack.
Mr. President, we have the funds to be able to do this, correct?
Yes,
Where's that?
it's there.
We simply do not have a choice.
Right.
So given that and the judge's explanation, I will move to approve the $50,000 additional appropriation to hire an additional pauper attorney.
Second.
A motion to approve and second. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Because I do too.
I've got a couple of questions for the judge, if I may. Judge, when I read these numbers here that describe caseloads at .803 and .793 and so on, how do I translate that into layman's terms to understand what?
They have a similar system now for rating judges and courts, the busyness of courts, which we happen to have the 2 busiest courts in the entire judicial circuit, which is Southeast Indiana. But they assign various cases. We have the C misdemeanors, B misdemeanors, A misdemeanors, and then the level 6 up through the level 1 felonies plus murder is its own category. And each one of those carries what the Public Defender's Commission has arbitrarily I wouldn't say arbitrarily, that might be insulting to say. I'm sure they went through a scientific process of determining what they thought the average amount of time was spent by an average defense attorney on an average case of an F2 type, of an F3 type, of an F4 type. And they've come up with some sort of statewide average. And over time, over the course of many cases, that probably does work out to some extent. So every time we assign an attorney an F6 case, they get a little bit on their stack, a certain amount that they have determined, whether that would be, you know, .005 or .002 for an F6, or, you know, you give them a higher level case, it's more time consuming. You know, you give them an F3. I'm not quoting the numbers here. I don't know them off the top of my head, but this is the way they do it, you see.
Does that mean that each type of case has basically an assigned number of hours
Yeah.
that's predicted to
Right,
to go
which
in?
translates to this decimal rating system that they came up with. And it being that if you're in private practice or take on other work in the way of public defender appointments, you're not to have an overall rating of greater than .66. Because the presumption is you're to be a part-time public defender at this rate.
Okay.
And if you go over 6.6, they say that's fallacy, you're not a part-time public defender, you're a full-time public defender. You can see there with the one gentleman, in the center paragraph where you see all the numbers, the second paragraph, one gentleman takes some public defender appointments out of county as well, and those count against his total. They carry around from county to county. It's the attorney that is rated, not the county. You see, that's how he got to, you see that there where he's 120%?
Yes.
Because of his out-of-county appointments as well. And so they just keep track, as if you're on a contract or an hourly basis as a public defender being appointed in Indiana, they keep track of every case that you're appointed on. You get a certain amount of credit, which accumulates toward your .66 limit with their rating system.
Does the Indiana Public Defender Commission actually supervise pauper attorneys to verify how much time they spend on each case?
No, that's what I was trying to explain earlier. They went through a process at one time, and it's been a while. I can get more information about that if you wanted, but
We have quarterly reports that we submit that tells what each pauper attorney does.
yeah, but he's talking about hours. It doesn't have hours on it.
Doesn't have hours
No,
or
except
bill?
for the F2s, the F1s, and the murder cases. Those are billed hourly, so the attorney swears under oath that these are the hours I spent on those cases, and those are paid on an hourly basis, just as a person hires a private attorney usually on an hourly basis. But those are off contract. The F1s, F2s, and the murders are not part of this contract. And the cases you would be appointed on F1s, F2s, and murders do not go into the same system because they're paid hourly instead of on a flat rate. Okay.
Okay. I understand it a little better now, and I hope those listening understand it a little better. Another question I had was, in this letter here, Derek Mason refers to whether or not to send a formal 90-day non-compliance notice. Now, we haven't gotten a 90-day non-compliance notice yet, have we?
No, he sent us in the fourth quarter. You remember I was here last year, actually in the first quarter of this year, when there's a lot of lag time for them to do these calculations and send you a notice. So our first reference that we were out of compliance was reference our third quarter of 2017, which we were notified very early in January, and I came in January to mention this, that was coming. And he said, it's a little over. I see that, at that time, he said, I looked at your numbers and I saw that you had a peculiar number of F6 felony cases in the third quarter of 2017. It may be that that's what pushed your numbers a little bit harder than usual compared to other third quarters in that rate. And, so we'll let it go for now and see how it goes. Well, you see how it went. It didn't improve. But he basically just turned a blind eye to our non-compliance, which stretches all the way back to, July of 2017, to see if it would fix itself. Maybe, just the hypothesis that there might have just been a surge that would come back down and we'd be okay, but it didn't happen. So then we get the fourth quarter numbers, which you see here, which we just got here now in the, right at the end of the first quarter, and now I'm here in the very, very beginning of the second quarter. And they went up, they didn't go down, they didn't correct themselves.
What I was searching for here was to figure out if this system gives us enough latitude to delay this into budget hearing time so that we can actually budget for it for the next budget year.
I would think not, because of this, and again, this is interpretive. I'm just reading these words as you have. I have not met with this gentleman personally or discussed this any more than you and I are doing right now. I think Ralph has spoken to him. But a 90-day non-compliance notice means he's planning on doing that right now. And what you end up with there, if they put you on a 90-day non-compliance notice, then you enter into basically what's a consent decree, where you're contractually bound. This is your last chance. We're going to take your money away. We're giving you 90 days to, well, first of all, we're going to come up with a plan. You're going to sign it to fix the problem, and we're going to check it into 90 days. And if you didn't do as you say and fix the problem, then we're taking your money back. And that's what he's threatening in the last paragraph right then. I'm sure Mr. Mason's comment would be, well, we told you about this all the way back in second quarter information that we sent to you in the third quarter information we sent to you in the fourth quarter of 2017. So you've known this is coming. We were sort of already on probation, as it were. So the answer to your question is I don't see that happening.
I think part of the problem here is we've talked about this last year. We do our budget, January comes around, we don't have enough pauper attorney money. We've somehow got to come up with more money. Well, we could, try and budget for that ahead of time. There's a committee that Ralph is on, I believe maybe both of you are on it, that kind of determines these pauper fees, or...
Yeah, Ralph's the chairman,
And yet none of the council here who has to pay the bill is there. Why is that? Well, I strongly feel that one of us from this council needs to be there so that we're apprised of what's going on. I think that's where Dale was kind of coming from, is we never know what's going on. We have this letter, we understand that it has to be paid, but when we're doing our budgets in August, we can't do anything because we don't have the numbers.
I understand that. Neither do I.
So how do we become a part of this committee, one of us?
Well, it was created by the legislative branch, so I think you would talk to the commissioners. I mean, it was created by the commissioners, the Public Defenders Board. It's not required, to my knowledge, unless the rules have changed since its creation. It's something created by the commissioners, and they can, as far as the ethics or rules of being a sitting council person or being a sitting commissioner and also serving on the board, I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I can look into that for you.
Can we find
or
out
having
that?
your representative, someone that you would select to be on there.
Yeah, I think we need a representative there to bring that information back to the council.
Well, I don't think, I think Mr. Bedore and Mr. Lanning are still on there nominally, but Ralph pretty much has been doing the legwork for it for quite some time. I don't know that he's opposed to that, and I don't know that Mr. Lanning or Mr. Bedore are opposed to that either. They may be very happy to give up their seat for someone of your choosing. I don't know. That's outside the scope of my authority, of course. But.
Well, if we could somehow, whether it's commissioners or whether it's you, find out if one of us can be on there, I'd appreciate that, because when the information is not getting back to the people that create the budget, and then we're having to come up with it. And so to answer Dale's question, do we have the money for it? It doesn't matter, we have to. I mean,
well, the consequence is you lose, over $100,000 in state reimbursement. So it's a net loser if you don't do it. So yeah.
That rule on reimbursement, is that a statutory rule, or is that?
It's an administrative rule.
An administrative rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an administrative agency. The State Indiana Public Defenders Commission is an administrative agency, just like the BMV or whatever. any other administrative agency. They make their own rules, and people that are on their board are appointed by the governor and by various other people.
So who's going to look into whether a council member can get it? When can somebody get back to me on that?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's no problem.
Thank you. So we've had discussion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the additional appropriation request from the commissioners in the amount of $50,000 for pauper attorney fees, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Okay, now,
And then you'll just come back. Would you also, if we have to meet before our next meeting,
as soon as I can possibly tell you, that's when I'll tell you.
okay, I mean, I'm talking about the additional
Yeah.
half a person.
Right.
Okay,
And I think it's pretty clear that we're gonna have to do that.
okay.
So at the very least, I guess go ahead and put President of the Public Defenders Board, Mr. Eldridge, on, and if for some reason he can't come, I'll come in instead.
Okay,
But if we have to do a special meeting because Mr. Mason's pushing us to do so, then I'll let you know as soon as possible.
awesome.
All right.
Judge, I hope you understand, I'm not trying to be hard to get along with on this thing.
Oh, I know.
I am frustrated with this system.
Yeah, it's uncertainty. It's the one thing a financial body does not want, and it's uncertainty. And Mr. Winter, Councilman Winter rather, has also explained that. I totally get that. People don't like that in their personal finances. It's the personal finance equivalent of your refrigerator blowing up and you have to go spend $1,000 all of a sudden. It's just terrible. It just messes everything up. So I absolutely get that. I really do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
There's an additional appropriation request from the commissioners in the amount of $50,000 to replenish insurance deductible account after claims were paid.
Now, do I understand this correctly, that this is only going to put an appropriation in place just in case that there are deductible claims? You do not have any outstanding bills?
I think that brings us current. James, you know, if we could.
There are no outstanding bills at this time.
Okay. Well, that makes it a little better.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve the commissioner's request for an additional appropriation of $50,000 for their insurance deductible
I'll second.
line.
We have a motion to approve the additional appropriation request in the amount of $50,000 for the commissioners to replenish the insurance deductible account after claims are paid. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Prosecutor's budget, office supplies.
That additional appropriation request and the reduction in appropriations, basically she's supposed to take money from one fund and put it in the other fund so she can buy some office supplies.
Okay. So reduction of appropriation request from the prosecutor in the amount of $1,380.60. This is to pay SCW invoices, desktop scanners for Sonia and Crystal, new e-filing system, and Gilda's laptop.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving this reduction of appropriation request, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay. Circuit Court, Judge Brentster.
Thank you. I just have a quick request. I need to replace an employee. My criminal court reporter had to resign due to personal reasons. So we have that position open. So I need to request approval on 144 for a new employee. I've interviewed and found that no way, but Candy Humphreys, who thinks we're a good candidate. We'd like to get her in the next couple weeks and get her started. She has some good experience. She has an educational background in criminal justice, which should help us on the criminal court side. So I just want to see if we can get that moved.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the 144 request for Judge Branstetter. We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you. Along with Judge Freed, I really want to thank you for your cooperation and helping us with the public defender issue. It's something we'll continue to work on and see what we can do to keep it under control. That's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Baker.
I also have a 144 request for a part-time employee. This person is a full-time dispatcher in Greensburg, and he's worked for us full-time. Took a better job in Greensburg, but he's a resource to fill in time slots, basically. Now, he's probably not going to be a large hour part-timer, but we have openings in our schedule that are sometimes hard to fill in. So the more of these trained resources we could get, the better. And so he expressed an interest, and I was eager to have him jump on board again.
I'll make the
Move
motion to
the-
approve. Sorry.
Go ahead.
The additional 144 for 911.
We have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the 144 request by 911 Director David Baker, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Jenna?
I am also here for 144. I had most recent employment from the receptionist position. So I'm asking for clerical. I'm asking for $24,297. It's a current county employee, Crystal Richardson, that just went to prosecutors coming back to juvenile probation. So that would be her same salary
Is she
from the county.
going to the receptionist position? Or is she going back to the job she had before?
I'm not sure.
Could make sense in the money.
It should.
It does according to any vote in the salary ordinance.
Well, then I'll put her back where she was before, so we'll get the same. So it'd be juvenile secretary.
So you, just so I understand, you're not asking for additional appropriations, you're simply asking for her approval to go back to a position that's already funded.
Correct.
Okay.
She takes her current salary with her.
Actually, she will have to, at the next meeting, do an additional appropriation though, because there's not money appropriated there. And then the prosecutor will have to do a reduction in appropriation.
So
Like, we can't just switch that money.
Switching from the left hand to the right hand.
Because, yeah, the last 144 that was a beginning salary was, I can't remember, 17,427 or something.
Yeah.
So there's going to be the difference there.
Yeah.
So I need to ask for an additional next
Yes,
month.
and then Eddie will do a reduction for that same amount, so it's equal.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's really not costing the county any extra, it's just, like you said, left hand to the right
Moving
hand.
it, yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
It looks like Richard was not able to make it. It looks like Mr. Scheid was not able to make it. So we'll forego those. Are there any patron concerns? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of adjourning this meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
I sincerely apologize for my coughing.